Indiana has gone 5-7 the past 2 seasons. Can they get over the hump in 2019? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
Tom Allen and the Hoosiers have been just a few plays away from making a bowl game the past 2 seasons. But 2019 finally feels like the year that the Hoosiers could finally get over the hump and make their first bowl game under Tom Allen. They returned 7 starters on offense, including Peyton Ramsey at quarterback, who threw for over 2,800 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions last year, to go along with 5 rushing touchdowns as well. And some people believe that there could be a quarterback battle in Bloomington, but I truly believe that Peyton Ramsey, if there is any battle going at all, will win that battle and is certainly the right man for the job if Indiana finally wants to break through and get into the postseason. They also returned Stevie Scott, the guy that rushed for over 1,100 yards last year for the Hoosiers, and they returned their top 2 wide receivers in Nick Westbrook and Donovan Hale. So this offense is finally taking form, finally taking shape for what Tom Allen wants, an explosive and quick offense in Bloomington. This is certainly the type of offense to do it. On defense, though, they only returned 7 starters as well, and they have to improve drastically. While the offensive numbers will probably improve, the defensive numbers were bad last year and need to improve as well. They allowed 29.9 points per game last year, and that's really unacceptable when you're going up against some of these Big Ten offenses. If Indiana wants to get into the postseason, those numbers have to go way down. And Raekwon Jones at linebacker and Raheem Lane and Andre Brown are there to do just that. As you can see, we have 3 surefire victories on the board for Indiana, at least in our opinion. We think they'll take care of Ball State, Eastern Illinois, and Connecticut out of the American Athletic fairly easily. But that Week 3 game against Ohio State, that will be the first loss for the Hoosiers in 2019. Last year on the road against the Buckeyes, they fell 49-26, so a somewhat respectable 23-point loss to a very, very good Ohio State team. But Ohio State this year, we talked about how strong we think this Indiana offense can be in 2019. It's still early on in the season, and they're going up against an Ohio State team that returns 9 starters on the defensive side of the ball. I could see this game being fairly close for a little bit, especially with it being in Bloomington, with Indiana getting to host this game. But in the end, Justin Fields and the Ohio State offense make enough plays. The defense wakes up. Maybe it's after halftime. Maybe it's midway through the third quarter. But the Ohio State defense wakes up, shuts down this Indiana offense, and the Buckeyes get their first win of the season, or hand the Hoosiers their first loss of the season, and Indiana is 3-1. And I know a lot of people were thinking that 3-1 is not too bad. 3-1 is a very promising start for a team that's looking to go bowling. But keep in mind, last year Indiana started the season 4-1 and only won 1 more game after that, finishing 5-7. They go on the road to face off against Michigan State, a team they fell to 35-21 last year. And this Michigan State team was fairly disappointing in 2018. Started off the season at number 11, but finished unranked with a loss to Oregon in their bowl game. And if Michigan State wants to get back to dominance in the Big Ten, wants to compete for a Big Ten title, they're going to have to see improved play out of Brian Lewerke at quarterback. He did not do very well in 2018, but did a good job in 2017. Even if he fails, though, I do believe that this Michigan State defense is very, very dominant. Much better than this Indiana defense. This game is on the road. Michigan State owns the edge defensively. They own the edge on the defensive side of the ball. Home field advantage. I'm giving the Spartans the win. And Indiana takes their second loss, and they're 0-2 in conference play. And that's been the problem for Indiana under Tom Allen. They haven't been able to win many games in conference play. So while they started off, 4-1 last year and 3-2 the year before, and I think 4-1 the year before that, they have been unable to produce in the Big Ten conference play, and thus resulting in a 5-7 season or just barely getting into bowl games at 6-6. They get a big-time bye week, though, sitting at 3-2, going back home to face off against Rutgers. And this will be a win for Indiana, their first conference win of the season. Last year, they barely survived Rutgers, winning just 24-17 on the road. And I do believe this Rutgers team will be improved. Do not get me wrong. I think their offense especially will be improved. Artur Sitkowski, in my opinion, can't get any worse. And then Raheem Blackshear was a guy that was kind of overshadowed last year, but will be good in the backfield for the Scarlet Knights. But this game, coming off a week of rest, back home for the Hoosiers, I don't think Rutgers has enough. A team that will improve statistically, will improve competitively, maybe not in the win totals, though. Indiana gets a win over Rutgers for their 4th of the season. But then the schedule gets really tough. After that. on the road against Maryland, on the road against Nebraska, and then Northwestern, and then that final stretch of the season, we'll get there, but even more brutal than this 3-game stretch here. But on the road against Maryland, last year, Indiana beat the Terrapins 34-32, and of course, they got to host that game. This Maryland team, though, being led with a new head coach in Mike Locksley, is not going to be your typical team that's going to be rebuilding under a new head coach. This team in Maryland could be dangerous in 2019. Now, I'm not saying win the Big Ten dangerous, but dangerous enough to pull off some upsets and maybe compete for a bowl game. They bring in Josh Jackson, the transfer quarterback from Virginia Tech. They also bring in Anthony McFarland, the running back who had a breakout season last year and had a breakout game against Ohio State towards the end of last season. And the defense for Maryland may have some questions, but they do return 5 starters on that side of the ball. This game on the road for Indiana, I think the Terrapins win this game. I think the offense, especially with an offensive-minded coach in Mike Locksley, is going to be very, very dangerous, and home field advantage gives Maryland the slight edge over the Hoosiers in a game that the past 3 meetings between these two has been decided by 1 possession. I would expect it to be 4 in a row decided by 1 possession, but the Terrapins get the win this time. Then Indiana goes on Nebraska, and I'm going to give them a loss here as well. Nebraska, a team that I think is the big-time favorite in the Big Ten West. Also to mention, Nebraska is coming off a bye coming into this game. And a Scott Frost team that's well-rested and a good Scott Frost team in 2019 is not one that you want to go up against. You've got Adrian Martinez at quarterback for the Cornhuskers. Many are considering him a potential Heisman candidate. And after what I saw last year, and if he continues to build on that, he very well could be. I haven't bought fully into the hype yet, but he did put up very good numbers just as a freshman. Also, this Nebraska defense is going to improve greatly, no doubt in my mind. This is a Nebraska team that very well could make an appearance in the Big Ten championship game, could pull off a handful of upsets this season. Scott Frost in year 2, I would expect bigger things. Last year, disappointing year, but you saw how competitive they were towards the end. Indiana, I don't think stands much of a chance going on the road against Nebraska, one of the toughest places to play in all of the Big Ten. They fall to the Cornhuskers. Then they face off against Northwestern, a team that's going to bring in another transfer quarterback similar to Maryland and bringing in Hunter Johnson from Clemson. And Northwestern, the team that won the Big Ten West last year, was kind of a major surprise and kind of a shock, especially after the way they started 2018. But you never want to doubt a Pat Fitzgerald team. This is a team that returns just 6 starters on offense and 6 starters on defense and has a very, in my opinion, difficult schedule. I don't think Northwestern can repeat as West champions, especially with Nebraska and Iowa and Wisconsin in that division. All teams I expect to improve greatly from their 2018 campaign. But I do think that Indiana, coming back home off of 2 back-to-back losses on the road, beats the Wildcats. I do think this will be another close game, no doubt in my mind. But I think in the end, home field advantage, and I think Indiana owns a slight edge defensively. I really do. And I think Hunter Johnson, he's only a sophomore. He's going to do big things for the Wildcats. It might not just come in year 1, though. It might come next year. Indiana gets a win over Pat Fitzgerald and the Wildcats, and it's a much-needed one, as that will be their 5th win, and their final 3 games are extremely difficult. A big-time bye week going into the road game against Penn State. Last year, the Hoosiers hung with the Nittany Lions. They only lost 33-28. And if this game was at home for Indiana, I'm not necessarily saying I would pick off the upset, but I do think it would be much closer. A lot of people are disregarding Penn State, saying they lost Trace McSorley, they lost Miles Sanders, they've lost some transfers, so they're not going to be any good this year, or they're not going to be as good as they've been. But Penn State under James Franklin, in my opinion, over the past few years will not disappoint. He has not disappointed me as head coach of the Nittany Lions. I know they've had some big-time choking games against Ohio State and maybe Michigan State, but this week, or especially November 16th, on the road against Penn State, the Nittany Lions get a big-time win over the Hoosiers. It's not going to be a 5-point loss for the Hoosiers like it was last year. It's going to be much bigger than that, and I think the Nittany Lions are hungry to once again show they're competitors in the Big Ten despite losing so much talent, and I expect James Franklin's teams to not really drop off by that much. Indiana falls on the road to Penn State. Final 2 games. They need one more win to get to a bowl game to break that streak of 5-7 seasons. And Michigan, this is a very intriguing game in my opinion because Indiana has battled Michigan extremely tough, and they've battled them consistently very tough. Last year, they only lost to the Wolverines 31-20. The year before, in 2017, they fell to the Wolverines 27-20 and overtime. In 2016, they fell to the Wolverines 20-10. And in 2015, they took Michigan to double overtime, falling 48-41. So Indiana consistently has played Michigan fairly close and have respectable showings. 2 overtime games and then The other two losses by just 2 possessions, one by 11 and one by 10. So this Michigan team does not need to overlook Indiana, especially with it being on the road for the Wolverines, and especially with Ohio State coming the week after. Indiana could catch Michigan at a bad time here and potentially pull off this upset. I am going to say they could pull off that upset, but I'm not giving it to them. I expect another close game. I do expect Michigan to be a legitimate college football playoff and Big Ten title contender. And I do expect them to be looking ahead a little bit. But in the end, they're going to wake up towards the end like they always do, like they've done the past 4 meetings, and Michigan will get a win, and it could be a gut-wrenching one for the Hoosiers, but they will fall to the Wolverines. And they close out the season on the road against Purdue. Bowl eligibility on the line in this game for the Hoosiers, much like it has been the past 4 years. The past 4 seasons, that final game against Purdue has decided whether Indiana will go to a bowl game or whether or not they will stay home. They've beaten Purdue twice and got to a bowl game. But the past 2 seasons, they have fallen to the Boilermakers and stayed home with 5-7 records. Purdue boasts one of the better defenses, I think, in the Big Ten. 9 returning starters, at least experienced in the Big Ten. Offensively, they only returned 3 starters, but 2 of them are huge. Their quarterback, Elijah Sindelar, and their star wide receiver in Rondale Moore, one of the most explosive players in all of college football. This game, the past few seasons, has been extremely close, just 1-possession games. Lost by 7 in 2018, lost by 7 in 2017. Unfortunately, I feel that Indiana on the road this year, even though they know what's at stake, will fall once again to Purdue in a very, very close game. This Purdue team is one that I don't think many people are paying attention to. They annihilated Ohio State, made headlines with that, then got killed themselves by Auburn in their bowl game. But I do have a lot of faith in Jeff Brom. The Boilermakers are another bowl team, and unfortunately, they're going to prevent their rival in Indiana from getting there. Indiana falls to Purdue in the season finale, finishes the season 5-7 for the 3rd straight year under Tom Allen. And you have to wonder, will that be it? Will that be it for Tom Allen and Bloomington? It'd be tough. The 3 straight 5-win seasons, it shows that you just can't get the job done in those close games. I hope for him that he can. If you look at the schedule, maybe they can pull off a win against Purdue. Maybe they can pull off one against Maryland. But really, those are the only 2 games that I could possibly see Indiana winning that could get them to bowl eligibility. They have the team to do it. The potential is there, but can they win those close games and maybe snag just one upset to finally get to a bowl game for the first time in what would be now 3 years? So guys, as always, thank you for watching. Please go check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert, and check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter, and especially sign up for our expert picks. For just $30, you will receive every single one of our college football spread picks, including the postseason. I can promise you that's a deal you do not want to pass up on. So go ahead, join our team, sign up today, only at thegridironexpert.com. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.